And welcome back to the Wayniac Nation Fantasy Football Spectacular YouTube podcast on the Twitch show over there. We're everywhere, people. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and now Twitch Live. Welcome back to our fantasy football show. We're just three regular dudes that like to talk about fantasy football. That's why we called it the Wayniac Nation Fantasy Football Spectacular. I'm Wayne Cavati. I'm your host. And joining me, as always, are the two best partners in crime. Coming to us from Tobacco Road is the vaccinated Mike Dunton. Dunton, how are you?
Half vaccinated.
Half.
Right.
I'm so
We're
sorry.
getting there. I'm doing well. It's go time around here. ACC tournament starts next week. So big time.
Can't believe it's March already.
It's nuts.
I know.
It's nuts.
Baseball's back. March Madness is around the corner.
Yep.
Things are starting to get back to a little normalcy. It's nice.
I know. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice.
It was 50 degrees here in New York.
Yeah, that's warm for whatever time of year this is.
Sprinter.
Speaking of being warm in New York, you may know him as the card breaker. You may know him as Fanduel Fee, whatever you want to call him. Ghost WP 420, whatever you want to call him. He's the master of Twitch, and he's our wingman. Fee, how are you?
I'm good. It's been beautiful here in New York, and just trying to take advantage of that. So, sprinter, I like that.
That's where we are for sure. So if you've been following along, we've been obviously we ran through the 2020 season, and we finished wrapping it up last week with our most valuable fantasy player at every position. If you'd want to go back on our YouTube page or Twitch, you could go take a look at some of our wrap-up sessions. We took a look at the best fantasy player on each team. We took a look at the best fantasy player at each position. We look at pleasant surprises, and we looked at the Ass Hat Awards, which were our first annual disappointments of the year. So what we should have done a long time ago is we're going to throw 2020 in the books, and we're not going to look back. We're going to start moving forward. We're in 2021. And today we're just going to get right into it. We're going to start our positional rankings. Now, these are a very, very early look. Obviously, some of the names on here, we don't even know if that's where they're going to be in a couple months, especially Deshaun Watson may go to the Houston Texans West and join JJ and Nuke in the desert. But wherever he winds up is certainly going to change the rankings here. But we're going to jump in and look at our top 10 way too early, a top 10 fantasy quarterbacks for 2021. Really, just any way you want to, whatever you define as the best quarterback, we're going to let you speak on. So, Dunton, we'll let you start the conversation. Number one quarterback heading into 2021. Why?
Okay, so I went at this, and I'm glad you said whatever you define as the best quarterback. I did not go into this as this is the best player at their position. I went into this as this is the best fantasy player at their position. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Very good. Yes.
So this is the person that you want to get at that position to get you the most points or the most consistent play week to week. So my number one quarterback going into this season is going to be Josh Allen. I think he is going, if he continues on the trajectory he was on from this previous year, I expect him to put up similar numbers to Patrick Mahomes last season. I think he can pull that off. And if the Bills get a running game where they have to, so I think the sky's the limit for Josh Allen going into this season.
I mean, the Bills, I agree with you. I think Josh Allen's the hands down number one heading into 2021. And it's like you said, if they get a running game, the Bills are one piece away from a championship contender. So that their focus is going to be the running game. So it should only help Josh Allen. Fee, who do you have there in the number one spot at quarterback?
So crazily enough, I also have Josh Allen. And I feel like the Bills still don't really have much of a running game. They probably have enough of one to give Josh Allen time to throw the ball. And they did it this year. and I think they'll be better next year.
Mhm.
Josh Allen finished as the number 2 fantasy quarterback this year. I think that he will expand upon that, and I think that he will be the number 1 guy next year. He also, throws in the running portion of his game, which is a very big piece for fantasy. And there are lots of other running quarterbacks in the league, but none are as good of a passer as he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I think the combination of the two really kind of
he's a pass first quarterback that can run. Not a Lamar Jackson who's a run first quarterback that could throw.
Yeah, right. Mahomes is just a different beast, right? So
he's on his own planet.
A whole nother level.
Now let me ask you both a question. Let's do a 12-team league. Is Josh Allen a first round draft pick?
I don't know.
In a 12-team league?
12-team league, probably, maybe. I mean, maybe.
I'd say no.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a quarterback on the list that's a first rounder just because of the depth.
Okay, but all right. I would probably agree with you then, but hold on. Here's my question for you. You have the 12th pick in that 12-team league. Are you taking Josh Allen with the first pick?
That's where you can That's where you can make the argument.
Right, because you're not going to get a better quarterback on the way back in your 3rd round.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so I agree with that. But I just don't see him as a first rounder.
Right.
Moving on to the 2nd spot, and I think we're going to see some disagreement right off the bat here. Fee, we'll start with you. Who's your number 2 rated quarterback heading into fantasy football 2021?
Well, I got Aaron Rodgers, and he surprised people this year, but he won't surprise people next year. He's got the same guys coming back. Hopefully, they can do something in the draft that helps him even more. Maybe get another wide receiver. But as long as they keep that team intact, I don't see any reason why he doesn't do again next year what he did this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dunton?
I also had Aaron Rodgers. Similar reasons to Fee. I think this will be the last year that we talk about Aaron Rodgers, and projecting past 2021 season, I think it gets very interesting in Green Bay, right? So I think Green Bay, this is it. They have to catch lightning in a bottle this year. They're going to do anything they can, draft-wise, free agent-wise, offensively, defensively, to try to get him a Super Bowl. They've been in the NFC Championship game in the last 2 seasons, right? I'm with you. As long as that team is the way they are. I mean, Aaron Jones' free agency worries me a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, but I am going to keep Aaron Rodgers at my number 2 spot.
And are you 100% convinced he's going to be a Green Bay Packer in 2021?
Who? Aaron Jones or Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Which one?
I'm sorry, Aaron Jones.
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. His free agency could alter where I have Aaron Rodgers if we do this in August.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're going to have to revisit it. Absolutely.
Right. They still have Jamal Williams, and they still have the rookie. What's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan.
AJ Dillon. Yes, you're right. And they still have an offensive line that is very solid, and they'll have some guys coming back from injury next year, but they're also an older offensive line, so that plays into it. So,
well, I'm gonna go against both of you, and I'm going with Kyler Murray, and I'm gonna tell you why. Excuse me. In our league, it's a little different, but this is the game log that I'm going to share. Our league, we still use 6 points for a quarterback touchdown, and I know that's not the norm anymore. It's usually 4 points for a quarterback touchdown, but I want to go through the game log of Kyler Murray. 30.6, 37, 28.4, 31.4, 33.1, 37.8, 47.7, 50.7, 36.3, and then he gets hurt. And that's where you get your 26.9, your 9.6, your 28.1. But then he came back for the 44-point week, but then he was hurt again the last 2 weeks. So you're talking about a guy that was on his way to the top quarterback position in fantasy football until an injury. So if the Cardinals who are not very well coached, but are clearly trying to win, make some right moves and personnel, and can protect Kyler Murray, you're talking again. I don't think he's the second best quarterback in football, like you said earlier, Dunton. But if you're talking about fantasy, he was on pace to be the number one guy. He was putting up points. And again, because of the rushing and the rushing touchdowns, he gets you additional points per game. And I just think that he's young, he's clicking, he's got one of the best wide receivers in football. And he's not going anywhere. And, and I just think if he could stay healthy, I think he's the number 2 guy.
And that's why I have him at number 4, because of the injury potential. I just feel like he's tiny, right? I mean, and we were always worried about Russell Wilson, right? But for some reason, I feel like Russell Wilson never gets hit. Kyler Murray gets hit a lot.
He does. He does.
So that's why, I mean, I wanted to put him up, and I almost had him. I wouldn't have had Aaron Rodgers at number 2. I almost put him there, but I was like, that injury, you're going to miss him maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. That could hurt your chances. So yeah, I everything you said, I agree with, Wayne, but I'm just worried about the injury.
Yeah, no. And again, this is an early look. This is all hypothetical. We'll know more about injuries when we revisit this as the season nears. But right now I have Murray slotted in at number 2. Dutton, who do you have for number 3? These are our top 10 fantasy quarterbacks heading into 2021.
I have Patrick Mahomes at 3, and I'm sure there's a lot of viewers out there saying Patrick Mahomes at 3. Trust me. I think the Chiefs are going to be fine. I think they're going to be good. I just don't see the Chiefs putting up 40 plus points a game anymore. I think the Bucs film from the Super Bowl is going to give a lot of defensive coordinators a chance to look at how do we stop the Chiefs? What can we do to slow them down, right? Will the Chiefs adapt to that? Maybe. They did not adapt in the Super Bowl. That was very clear. So I think there's now footage of how do you control the Chiefs, right? So I think that is helpful for the rest of the league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes at 3, you're still looking at a guy that's going to get you a game here or there that's going to get you 50 points. You're going to get, and you're going to average 25 points a game probably. I just don't see him putting up the obscene numbers he's put up the last 2 years.
Fee?
I have Kyler Murray at 3 for all the reasons you said earlier. I think that you're absolutely right. He was on pace to have a monster season, and then he got hurt. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think the Cardinals are going to make a run, and they're going to need Kyler Murray to do what he did this year again.
Absolutely. They can't without him doing that. I'm going to stay on the same page as Dunton. I think Mahomes is number 3. Again, you're talking about 3 guys that probably go in the same round. Whoever gets picked first in your fantasy football league is going to start the run. And I think those are the first 3 that go off the board with AA Rod. And then I think there'll be a little lull until the next quarterback. Moving on to number 4, you guys already said my number 4, Aaron Rodgers, and it's nothing against Rodgers. I just think those guys are a little bit better from a fantasy aspect. I mean, if you look at Rodgers, his points this year came very touchdown based, right? He wasn't having 400-yard games. So if for some reason those touchdowns are taken out of the picture, he's a very normal quarterback, which isn't. He's not a normal quarterback because there's a lot of bad quarterback play in the NFL.
I'm with you though,
but he's a very normal fantasy quarterback. Yes. If those touchdowns go away, because you all of a sudden you go from a guy throwing for 275 and 4 touchdowns a game to 275 and 2 touchdowns, and you can get that in a lot of places. But the chances of that going away completely, and the fact that he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks ever to play the game, interception wise, turnover wise, fumble, everything. He's just a safe guy. So I have him at number 4. Dutton, who do you got at number 4?
We already talked about my 4, Kyler Murray. I mean, everything we've talked about. So move on.
Fee.
Yeah, my number 4 is Mahomes, and I think that the fire is still there for the Chiefs. They are in a great window to do big things. I know they fell a little bit short this year, but I think they're going to come back next year and be hungrier.
Yeah, I mean, hard to go against any of those guys. Number 5, we talked about him leading into the conversation. I think it's Watson on a talent level and what he could do level with the football. Of course, it's a crapshoot wherever he winds up. And you have to consider the strong possibility that he may not play. I mean, he does not want to play for the Texans, and they do not want to trade him. So you have to put that in there. And if come August, when we revisit these picks before your drafts, if he hasn't stepped on a football field, I'm not going to have him at number 5.
Can we please have HBO just sign up the Texans for Hard Knocks right now? I know it's against
nobody
all the
wants
rules.
to watch that.
Oh, everyone will watch it. If Deshaun Watson is sitting out, are you kidding me?
Dutton, I know you agree. You have
Watson.
I
mean, and here's the thing. I put Deshaun Watson at 5, and I'm going to be honest with you. I pulled a total teacher move here because he could easily go up to number 1 or 2, depending on what team he goes to.
Oh, there's no doubt. He could be the best fantasy quarterback.
Or he could easily drop to 8, 9, or 10,
top 10,
depending on what team he goes to. So I said, I'm going to put him nice average at 5. And it's really like if he stays on the Texans and plays on the Texans, he's probably the 5th best fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
Despite what the Texans will have out there with him.
Probably true.
Right.
Fee.
Yeah, I got Lamar Jackson, and this is going to be, a questionable decision. I feel like not many people are going to agree with it, but
I don't.
I think it's, the fact that Lamar uses his legs the way he does automatically puts him in the top 5 fantasy wise for quarterbacks. I don't think he was hurt this year, but the guy puts up points, and I think that Baltimore is going to figure out a better way to keep him involved instead of just running most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I think they need to figure something out. So, again, it all depends upon what they do in the draft. If they get him any weapons to go along with what they already have, they have a great running game for sure. But I think Lamar really, he fits the mold for, solid fantasy quarterbacks. And I think, you got to have him in your top 5.
Yeah. I mean, fantasy speaking, I definitely thought about him. I have him a lot lower. And I just, eventually he has a cannon of an arm, but he's not accurate. And eventually he's going to have to start passing more or become a running back. That's one of his 2 options, right? It doesn't last like that. We watched it with Vic. Vic made a great transformation and became a throwing quarterback. If he can't do that, if Lamar Jackson can't do that, Lamar Jackson's not the passer that Michael Vick was when Vic was a running quarterback. I mean, Vic was still a great quarterback. Lamar Jackson's not that. And eventually that's going to start catching up to him. Question is how much longer does he have? He's still young. So probably a couple more years that you could have him in that top 5 conversation. I don't, but I could definitely understand it. I don't think you're a lunatic for putting him in the top 5. Moving on, we are doing our way too early top 10 quarterback fantasy football rankings for 2021. Number 6, I got Russ Wilson. To tell you the truth, my 6, 7, and 8 are basically the same position for same ranking for me. I couldn't figure out how I wanted to go. I gave Russell Wilson the benefit because I think out of the next 3 guys I talk about on my list, I think he has the best receivers in Lockett and Metcalf. And he's Russell Wilson. I mean, he's proved it time and time again that he can do it. He is getting older, and he definitely fizzled down the stretch last year, fantasy wise. But I just think he's still a guy that you could trust as a number 6. Dutton.
Number 6, I have Justin Herbert.
One of my guys.
However you want to call him. Great rookie season. I think was a surprise to many people how well he played at the beginning of the year. I mean, I'm sure he thanks the person who injected what's his face?
Tyrod
Taylor's rib and broke his rib or whatever, so he couldn't play. But I think the Chargers have something to build on there.
Absolutely.
I think they can start drafting an offense building around a quarterback, which would be helpful. So I'll be interested to see what they do in the draft this year. So yeah, I'm going to put him there. I'm going to lock him in at 6. And I'm going to tell you why I have your guy Russell Wilson a little bit lower when we talk about him next.
Okay. Fee.
I have Deshaun Watson. I know that you guys, just spoke about him. I like him. He's solid. It really all depends on what goes on with him and the Texans, where he ends up going, if he doesn't go, if he plays, if he doesn't play. I think there are a lot of question marks, and a lot is going to, determine how high up the ranks he goes. And look, Deshaun Watson is a very good quarterback. He's always been, in the top 5 to 10 quarterbacks fantasy wise. I've never been high on him though. I've never been like a huge Deshaun Watson fan. And I don't know why. I mean, the guy puts up numbers for sure. But I'm probably lower on him
because he plays on an offensive line that's Swiss cheese. He could get killed at any moment.
That's definitely part of it. But yeah, I mean, all depending on where he ends up going, sure, he could end up turning into, a top 3 fantasy quarterback. But right now, I think I got him down at number 6.
I think, yeah, that's a fair evaluation. Number 7 on our list, I have been unapologetic in my hype of Tom Brady since the preseason. I drafted him in our league. I traded away Patrick Mahomes in order to start him. I told you I thought he was the fantasy football MVP, and I still think he has enough in the tank with the weapons on hand in Tampa to make another run. And I'm putting Tom Brady in as the number 7 fantasy football quarterback heading into 2021. Fee, what do you think?
I think you're wrong. No, I got Russell Wilson there. For all the reasons I think that you said, I think that, listen, Russell Wilson the first half of the year was insane. And I feel like if the Seahawks, stick with everything that they have right now, they're gonna have to figure out a way to keep that going. Instead of just running the ball, because I know that that's what they like to do. Mm-hmm. So I think Russ, as long as the Seahawks, and the problem is you're not going to know, right? You're not going to know until the season starts. So where do you draft him? And, I think the uncertainty, drops him down on my list to number 7.
That's fair. Dutton.
I also have Russell Wilson. You're wrong about Tom Brady because his knee injury is a lot worse than people really know about.
I know he's already on injury reports.
Right, and he's having surgery, and it's not just a scope; it's something else. So be wary of that. I understand why you ranked him there, but be wary. I'm worried about Russell Wilson. It's so weird to me that he was just named the Walter Payton Man of the Year, which was probably deserved years ago for the guy, right? Like, who doesn't like Russell Wilson, right? And yet there is something weird going on in Seattle right now. They don't like that he was talking about not being happy. He's not happy, and he's telling people he's not happy. So I'm worried about that. I definitely think it's a weird, all of a sudden, wait, Russell's not happy too? What's going on? So I don't know. That being said, he's still going to put up great fantasy numbers. Wayne, you said it all before. He's got DK Metcalf. He's got Tyler Lockett. He's got a team that, wants to win. They want to win now. Their window is closing. Fiumano was right. They like to run the ball. They're not going to get Marshawn Lynch out of retirement anymore, so that's not going to happen. So they got to figure that out. But I don't know. I'm just worried about Russell Wilson not being happy. That's just weird to me all of a sudden. So
that's fair. That brings us to number 8 on our top 10 list for 2021 fantasy quarterbacks. I'm going with Justin Herbert. I think, Dunton, you said a lot of the reason why I considered him at that number 6 spot. I think he's a great quarterback. It makes you wonder why they were even going to start Tyrod Taylor in the first place. And he can only get better, and the Chargers will only get better with him. But fantasy speaking, he'd probably benefit from the Chargers not getting better because he got all his points having to play catch up most of the year. But I think he's a very good quarterback and could easily be top 5 by the end of his second full season. Dutton.
So I went a little wacky here at number 8 because I have 2 names that I'm going to just throw at you real quick that have the potential to be top 10 quarterbacks, but also have the potential to be complete busts, right? Depending on what happens. One's coming back from injury, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott easily was on pace to be the number 1 quarterback before getting hurt, right? Who knows what's going on in Dallas, what they're doing, where they're going, how he's going to come back. That was a brutal injury. We all saw it. It was gross, right? Everything is on pace for him to be ready to play. That's
Yep.
good, you know.
Doesn't he need to sign a contract too?
And then there's that. Right. So then is he going to be a Cowboy? And what team, it's the Deshaun Watson question of what team is Dak playing on, right? The other one that I have there is Jameis Winston. Is he going to be the starting quarterback for the Saints? And if
No
he
way.
is, and he doesn't throw 30 interceptions, he is a top 10 quarterback. Because
Fantasy wise, yes.
Right. But I don't know. Is he going to be the starting quarterback for the Saints? That is a huge question right now. So
I mean, they went with Tim Tebow at quarterback over Jameis Winston, right? I mean, he's a better Tim Tebow, Taysom Hill.
you're right. Yeah.
And they didn't trust Winston. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know.
But he did throw 1 touchdown in the playoffs. He was 1 for 1 for a touchdown.
He was, yeah, because nobody thought in their right mind they would let the Jameis Winston throw a football in the playoffs. I don't see that. Well, I'm not saying that. I don't see him being the starting quarterback for the Saints. It doesn't mean he won't be a starting quarterback somewhere if they trade him.
And that's why I had a big question mark, because if he's the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions or something else, then no, he's not a top 10 quarterback. And I know they have a quarterback right now in Jared Goff, but he's also hurt all the time. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Fee, who do you got?
I got Justin Herbert, and it's basically for all the same reasons that you mentioned just 5 seconds ago. He's really good. I think he's got a lot of really good guys around him in LA. And I think the Chargers are an up-and-coming team. And there's no reason to think that he's going to take a step back. So I got Herbert.
I like it. Number 9, I have Lamar Jackson. That's where I penciled him in again. I said it earlier. I question how much longer he's going to put up good passing numbers, but there's no denying his running game. So I have him penciled in at number 9. Fee, we'll go to you.
I have Matthew Stafford at number 9. And he's inheriting in LA Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and a solid running game. And listen, Stafford has thrown for 5,000 yards before, and he throws for basically 4,500 every year as long as he's not hurt. I think with McVay, he figures something out with him, and I think that Stafford has a very good year next year. I wanted to put him higher. It's just that new team, new coach. There's some question marks. I really did want to put him higher. But I think putting them at 9 is probably a good move.
Dunton.
Everything Fee said I agree with. I have Matthew Stafford at 9. The only concern I have with Matthew Stafford, and Fee, you might agree with me on this, is a lot of his numbers are because the Lions have been playing catch up for his entire career.
And one of the things Fee said is he's never had a running game.
Right.
He's never had a running game. The Rams have a running game.
So that is a concern. But everything else, Fee, I completely agree with you on. It is so intriguing to see him on this team and to see what happens. But I'm worried that it's going to be a different Matthew Stafford, because he's not going to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to throw for 270 and 2 touchdowns, and they're going to win a lot.
So that brings us to number 10. And I will tell you that I considered Stafford, and I kind of just voiced my opinion why I didn't go with him. But my 2 guys I had are both question mark guys. I went with Dak. Just the numbers he was putting up. If he lands back in Dallas, those receivers are perfect for him. But I do think Stafford has, of the guys that we've listed here, I think Stafford has the most potential to be the highest riser on our list. But I do have him just outside the top 10 heading into the season, just because it's a much different game. like you said, Dunton, the Lions were always behind. They had no running game. He did have one of the best wide receivers to play the game, to chuck the ball, just throw it in the air, and would come down for it for the early part of his career when he was throwing for 5,000 yards. So there's a different landscape, but it's a good landscape. So he does have the potential. Now, Dak, like we said, everything is good. Reports on the injury, it sounds like he'll be ready for training camp. It's just a question of which training camp he'll be ready for. So there's equal question marks there, but I think Dak showed last year that he deserves to be a top 10 quarterback, and that's why I went with him. Dutton, who rounds out your top 10?
Lamar Jackson. We've talked about him before. I agree with a lot of what you said, Wayne. I'm worried that the Ravens are pigeonholing Lamar Jackson for the type of quarterback he is, because they are not getting wide receivers for him to throw the ball to. Like, they're, you know what I'm saying? So they're almost like, we know that you're really good at running, so that's what we're going to let you do, and eventually that's going to come back and bite them. And I'm worried about that. But he has the potential to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. You know, if he can get a wide receiver that he can count on, and he can get a little bit more accurate and continue the running, I think he's right there. So,
Fee, who rounds out your top 10 for 2021?
I was flip-flopping back and forth between a few guys. But
Danny Dimes.
No, it's not Danny Dimes. But I think it's got to be Dak. It's got to be Dak. And it's, for all the reasons you guys mentioned. And, there's a question, what team does he actually play for? I still think it's going to be the Cowboys. There's the question mark about his injury and, about knee injuries in general. But he's so good, and he was doing so good for the first 4 weeks of the season or whatever it was, that I just don't think, if he comes back healthy, I don't think there's any way that anybody stops him, and that's going to certainly help Zeke Elliott's cause as well. So
he can't be any worse than he was last year.
No, that is for sure. But yeah, I'd go with Dak. You could probably even move him up the charts a little bit. But again, with that injury, it's kind of tough.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Our first top 10 rankings. And remember, these are early projections. We're going to revisit them all throughout the summer as camp opens, and then obviously as we get closer to the draft. But we're going to put this up on the blog. We'll put this up on our YouTube page. It'll be right here on Twitch. Remember to follow our own Fanduel Fee, and when he breaks his cards over there on the Twitch page over there, to follow him doing that stuff too. But we'll be back next week, and we'll just move down the position list and look at 10 running backs for you for heading into 21. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Tell your friends. And Goonies, never say die. Later.